Have you ever wondered how language doesn't describe reality but constructs reality? When we give names to sensations, which are fluctuations of consciousness, we create the notion of a physical world. Also, the notion of a physical body, conceptual universe. Although naming sensations does not literally create a mind-independent cosmos, there is a strong case that naming is what constructs for us a humanly experienced physical universe of objects in space and time. Preconceptual experience can be described as a flow of sensations, affective tones, and qualitative shifts before any stable thinghood is posited or proposed. The discipline phenomenology studies how things are experienced or things as experienced are constituted in consciousness rather than presupposing ready-made external objects. There are no ready-made external objects. To encounter a cup or a book instead of a shifting field of color, temperature, and resistance, the mind must organize this flux into something that appears as an object, transcending any single sensation. So, this organization is not yet a universe. It is a pre-linguistic structuring of as if objects. Only when these structures are bound to words, cup, book, hand, table, do they enter a shared communicable world. So, sensations are the raw materials, but the act of naming them turns them into publicly recognized physical things. So, of course, Advaita Vedanta makes a precise distinction: Brahman as reality versus world as name and form. In Sanskrit, Nama Rupa. So, according to this view, what exists fundamentally is consciousness. The so-called world is a collection of forms, which are actually phenomena, fluctuations of consciousness, and these are given by the senses, and names are given by the mind. So, form, rupa, arises from the way sense organs carve appearances. Name, nama, is the linguistic tag that stabilizes that appearance as this thing with a history, use, and identity. This is how we create our persona too. You give a name and then history, and then what this person does, what's he useful for, she useful for, writing books, cooking, etc. And then you have an identity. So teachings explicitly state that the world is nothing but collection of name and form. Remember, first there was the word. And that form comes from perception, while name is applied once again by the mind. This is how humans co-create the universe they live in. Linguistic relativity empirically supports the idea that language does not just label reality, but shapes it and shapes or constructs what shows up as what we call real. So the grammatical and lexical structure of a language influences how its speakers perceive and categorize the world. Different languages partition color, space, time, and agency differently. And so speakers in these different languages then experience different saliences and distinctions as obvious features of the physical world. This suggests that once a community agrees on words for certain patterns of sensation, solid, object, force, particle, body, those patterns crystallize into the basic furniture of that community's universe. Therefore, naming is not a neutral overlay. It is a generative act that configures what counts as a physical fact. Contemporary analytical work on perception also hints that sensations function like symbols which we interpret as physical properties. So many accounts now distinguish between raw sensory phenomenology, which is sensations, and a representational component, judgment or thought, that interprets them as about physical objects. Okay, but physical objects don't really exist. So phenomenology can be seen as functioning the way symbols function in thought. They're not inherently representational, but become about something via a learned interpretive scheme. All perception is a learned phenomenon. So if sensations are taken as symbolic marks and language supplies the system of interpretation, okay, then naming qualifies as the step that translates bare qualia into a spatial causal universe. In this picture, physics is the refinement of a symbol system for patterns in sensation, not a view from outside consciousness. Let's put it together. All that is ever directly given is consciousness with its qualitative modifications, sensations with these appearances. Phenomenology and Advait converge on this first person starting point. These modifications do not intrinsically come labeled as objects in space or events in time. They are a flowing field of qualities. Human nervous systems and cultures develop schemes that group recurring patterns of sensation and interaction into stable configurations, which are then bound to words, names. This process is called reification. Once patterns are named, they become shareable, countable, and law-governed matter, or energy, or body, or distance, and cause. These function as linguistic anchors that stabilize a specific model of reality. Linguistic relativity shows that different naming schemes yield different worlds of salient distinctions and perceived possibilities. So our lived universe is a linguistically mediated construction. Therefore, the physical universe that humans inhabit, the universe of discrete objects in space-time obeying causal laws, is the universe as constituted in and through our practices of naming and symbolizing sensations. This is how we build a world. This is how we construct the physical universe. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma.